Hey everybody, it's Brendon Burchard, host of The Charge Life, and I'm excited to welcome you here today to the worldwide premiere of Tony Robbins' new book, his first new book in almost a decade. The book is called Money, Master the Game, 7 Simple Steps to Financial Freedom. And I'd like to tell you about this worldwide premiere. We've got Tony here, and we'll be going into an in-depth interview with him about the book and about what you can do to take financial steps to achieve more freedom. And in this process today, we also want to say thank you for being here and for supporting the book. As a worldwide premiere, that means today is the first day that you can purchase the book on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, on online retailers, and at your local bookseller. So Tony, I want to give you a gift as thanks for supporting the book and committing to your own financial future and achieving more freedom. You're able to get some extra bonuses from him today that's not available anywhere else. So as you can see, beneath this video, you can click the Amazon link to go ahead and order the book. And you're welcome to order the book as hardcover or on Kindle. And then all you have to do is forward us your receipt to the email address listed below. And when you do that, our system will verify your receipt, and then bam, we will send out your 4 exclusive bonuses that you're getting here as part of participating in the worldwide premiere. We're honored to have you here. We're excited to talk about your financial future and to figure out this question of what can you do to finally master money in your life. So with that, I'm excited to be here and to welcome my friend, Mr. Tony Robbins.
Good to be with you, brother.
Good seeing you here, buddy.
Nice to see you.
So happy to have you.
Thank you.
You know, a lot of people already know your story, and they know the success and the achievement and the amazing people that you coach, the 50 million people around the world that you have served and inspired. But let's go back a little bit. I'm wondering, you know, as much as people know that story, so many of them also know that time of hardship when you were so broke, you were down and out, living in a tiny apartment, and they know that famous story where you didn't even have a proper apartment, so you had to wash your dishes in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Can you remember though, like a specific moment when you thought, I got to figure out this money thing. I got to figure out my financial future. I got to figure out this wealth game because this can't stand any longer.
Well, I think I had those moments earlier. I think sometimes you hit those moments multiple times, but you don't quite figure it out still. I mean, I grew up in an environment where we had no money and no food. I mean, part of why I'm going to feed 50 million people this year myself, and hopefully 100 million with people's help, is because we had no money, no food at Thanksgiving. So it was magnified at that time. So I remember in those days saying, I will never have children really till I master this area of my life, which wasn't true. Having my son come was one of the first major things that made me wake up and say, I got to figure this out. I don't want him to go through the pain, because I associated all of, 4 different fathers. I associated so much pain not being able to take care of our family from not having economic freedom and economic security, even basic security. So I think I was driven earlier to try and solve this, but you think you solve something and you solve it to the level you are. And I'd gotten to a level where I'd started to succeed a little bit, and then I got complacent, quite frankly. I wasn't doing it for the money, and I made some money, and a lot of my friends, I was excited. So I went to some of my friends back from where I grew up, and I said, hey man, let's fly to Egypt, and let's race camels between the pyramids and stuff.
Let's do something with this money.
Yeah, and I wanted to do it with them, and I got rejected by them. I was like, oh, easy for you. And I was like, what are you talking about? Well, you got all this money. I said, it's not about that. We're going to go together, And I think what happened in my head was money wasn't spiritual all of a sudden. Before you needed money just for your family to be taken care of, so you didn't suffer. Now having money was a negative.
Right.
You're not liked if you have too much money. People judge you. So in my head, what I did is I think I collapsed the two, and I just went, okay, you make enough money to do okay, but not so much that people are going to judge you, and not so bad that you're starving. But when you try to meet that middle world, I found myself living in Venice in this little not one bedroom, bachelor apartment, didn't have a bedroom, washing my
California.
dishes. Yeah, Venice, California, not Venice, Italy, trust me. And I'm in this little apartment, I'm washing on a hot plate, cleaning a hot plate and washing my dishes in the bathtub. And what shifted me was there are many stacking experiences. I had an experience where I ran out of gas, not because I hadn't filled the tank, because I had no more money. And I pulled over on the side of the road and locked the car, and it was getting dark, and I was praying they didn't tow my car, because that happened once before, and I didn't have the money to get it out of the tow. Walked back home, and I literally got to the front door of my house. It was 2516 Pacific Avenue, apartment 3A in Venice. Anybody wants to go by, they can check it out. Second story, and there's a door there, apartment 3A, and there's this note stapled to the door. and it's typed, and I don't know if you've ever seen one of those in your life, you probably haven't, but it's called a quit or claim document, which says you have 3 days to either pay up or remove your stuff, or the sheriff's gonna do it for you.
Right.
Basically, it's your eviction notice. And I went in and I lit a candle. And I didn't light a candle because I was spiritual. I lit a candle because I also had to pay the electric bill. And it's a true story. I tease about it now, but it's a true story. And I'm reading my eviction notice about it, and I just got so angry. So the next day, I went on this run. I didn't know what I was doing, but I hadn't run in God knows how many years. I was 38 pounds heavier, and I decided to put this music in my ears. I had one of those old Walkmans. That's how old I am. And I raced to Barracuda by this group, this female group that was singing at that time. And I'll never forget, I came out there and I said, I'm going to change this. And then I did for a while again. I started to do better, but then I dropped off again. And I think it's because inside all of us, most of us, if you don't have real wealth, I can show you everything what to do, and I will. In my new book, I've interviewed 50 of the smartest people literally on earth. I'm talking about Carl Icahn, the day I met him, he just made $2 billion in an 18-month investment starting with almost nothing, tiny numbers. Guys like, Paul Tudor Jones hasn't lost money in 28 straight years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unheard of,
legends.
Right? Total legends, the best in the world. But even that won't work if you don't change what's going on in your head or your heart. And a lot of us aren't aware of it. And so I finally kind of sabotaged myself again, found myself still in that little apartment, and I got to the point where I had, 23, 24, probably $24 and some change left over. And I was getting worried, like, how am I going to eat? What am I going to do? I'm not paying my rent, but how am I going to eat?
Right.
And I got myself in a place where I said, okay, when I was 17, my mom kicked my dad out, kicked me out. My dad went back east. I had to figure out what to do. So I survived by making a little money and then run into the smorgasbord and loading up for the winter, eating all that I possibly could. So I thought, okay, I got to get out of this environment. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to drive the car because I'm not going to spend the money on parking or driving, but it's only 3.5 miles to Marina del Rey, which is a beautiful place in LA, and there's a place that's still there called El Torito, and it's a little Mexican restaurant on the water, all these boats going by. So I go there, and I'm watching the boats go by, and I'm getting lifted back up. I'm thinking, come on, raise your consciousness. Like, you can do anything. You just need to focus. Stop focusing on who screwed you over, because I had a lot of people kept their word with me.
A lot of people have that is bitterness.
Oh, I was
like
bitter.
Very bitter.
I was bitter
not
towards
just
money.
Scared, but bitter.
I was bitter towards money, and I was also bitter towards the people around me who I felt kind of put me there because they didn't keep their word. Like one guy in particular, I loaned him money when he was desperate, more than $1,000, and he wouldn't even return my phone calls, and I got $25, less than $25 in my name. And so I go there, I load up and everything, tacos, everything's just loading. Not carb loading for a run, carb loading to live. And I was about to leave, and before I left, the door opens, I could see the main door, and this little boy walks in who's in this perfect little suit and tie and the whole thing, he even had a little vest, and he's just adorable. And he opens the door, and this beautiful woman walks in who's clearly his mom. And I don't know what it triggered inside me, but I was deeply moved because just the way he conducted himself. He pulled his chair out for his mom, he put in, he sat down, he was just so loving, so attentive. It just struck something into me that I can remember to this day. And I watched him, and I found myself smiling inside and just thinking, this is what life's about. Life's about more than the stuff I've been thinking about. And so I walked up to this little boy, and I introduced him myself. I said, I'm Tony, and I don't remember his name. I think my name's Ronnie, I think it was. And I said, Ronnie, I got to tell you something. I said, I am so impressed by you. I said, you are such a gentleman. I said, the way you treat your date, the way you open the door, the way you pull out a chair. I said, I watched all those things. I said, you are a class act. And he goes, she's my mom. And I said, man, that's even better. I said, that's even more of a class act. I'm even more impressed. I'd rather really reinforce him, And I said, and take her to lunch like this is amazing. He goes, well, I don't really have a job yet. And I said, well, no, you are taking her to lunch. He goes, no, I can't. I said, yes, you can. And I had no plan. It wasn't like I thought this thing through. I just instantaneously, I just paid my bill. I reached whatever it was left, $19 and some change, and I just poured it all out right there on the table in front of him. And he looked at me, his eyes got like big as garbage can covers, and he looked at me shocked, and he smiled, and then he said, oh, I can't take that.
Yeah.
I said, sure you can. He said, how come? I said, because I'm bigger than you are, right? And then he just smiled from ear to ear, and I didn't even look at his mom. I wasn't about that, and I walked out of that room, walked out of the restaurant, and I don't know how to describe it. It was, I felt the lightest I've ever felt in my life. I felt euphoric. I had tears start streaming down my face, but they weren't sadness tears. They were just, it was that feeling like, I don't know how to describe it, the feeling like relief, and a feeling of joy and a feeling of freedom that I can't even tell you. I should have been scared shitless. Where am I going to eat? Where's my next meal going to come from? I don't have another dollar. And I went home that night. I had no fear. And I just went to work on a plan of what I was going to do. And I figured, well, people fast all the time. I'll fast for 5 or 6 days.
I just ate all these tacos.
It's like, gotta last me that long, right? And I don't know, it was the most beautiful feeling. And I woke up the next morning, and in those days we had the old snail mail and not electronic mail. And this envelope comes, and it's the guy that I've been calling who wouldn't return my phone calls, who owes me this money, and he gave me the $1,000+. He gave me interest on it. And at that stage, that would make me last 2-3 weeks, you know, maybe a month I could probably drag that into. And I just started bawling, I mean, just crying. And I was like, I'm an emotional character, but I was really emotional. And then in the middle of it, the most beautiful thing that happened was, I asked myself, you know, what does this mean? You know, why did this happen? And I don't know if it's true, but I decided that I was being rewarded for doing the right thing. That if I just in my life, I stopped thinking about that stuff and I just spontaneously did what I believed was right, and I didn't think about money, that it would be like oxygen. You don't stop to say, if I take this breath, will the air be there?
Right.
And if I just do what's right, if I just give spontaneously, truthfully, honestly, I'm not going to worry about this. And I wrote that at the end of my book. I wrote this little story, shared this story, because I was trying to think, how would I explain to people what this book's really about? It's about getting beyond scarcity. You'll never get beyond it. You got to start beyond it.
You know,
There's something has to click inside you.
You had this action of abundance.
Yeah, it was.
That's what it was.
It was the day. It was the day. I tell people that's the day I became a wealthy man. The day I gave up everything and had no fear.
Yeah, when you give without expectation, and when you give in that moment when
and
you don't have a lot.
not for positioning, not to try and be somebody, just because it felt right. So I've let that guide me throughout my life, and it's been, you know, I've had my moments. I've been stupid. I've done dumb things and smart things and everything in between. But I've never gone back to that scarcity. And when that's gone, you can do just about anything else. But I tell people, if you don't give a dime out of a dollar, you're not going to give $1 million out of 10 million or 100 million out of $1 billion. You're bullshitting yourself.
Yeah, it's a mindset thing, and whatever is fixed now, it's going to be the same. You throw more money on it, it's the same exact.
And what people don't realize is it teaches your brain there's more than enough when you will give what you don't think you can give. And until you do that, there's a war inside.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you got to go give everything away and everything else. I'm not suggesting that, but
there was a simple action.
It was very simple, and it wasn't huge amounts of money.
It was a lunch, just like a lot of people. The first time they go down the soup kitchen and they actually serve something up.
Exactly
and
right.
They also contribute to that meal, like we'll talk about with what you're doing and giving. They see the look on other people's faces, and now they know it's not about their $20.
No,
it's not about their bank account at all.
No.
It's about, wow, this is humanity. We're all struggling. We're all in this, and maybe that money can be a transactional thing, but it can also be a very meaningful thing.
Yeah.
And I've loved how you approach that in your book. It's not just about money. It's not just about wealth. It's not just about finances. It's about what's your life about.
Yeah.
And you've done a really great job with that.
Thank you.
You know, but I think you also went into a pretty scary territory for a lot of people talking about money, but you came at it with calling it master the game.
Yeah.
So all these emotions you share, and everybody's had sort of, I think, those frustrations financially, where they were challenged, where they freaked out. I know maybe you heard my story a little bit about I went into bankruptcy.
Yes, I remember.
Scared to death, and I'm writing my book on this fold-out table my mom used to use as a sewing room table. My lady walks in at the time, and she sees me writing ferociously, and our apartment's so small, I had my bills and my vision boards and my dreams and my bankruptcy all in the bed because there was no desk. So it's on it. So she comes in late at night, goes over, crawls under the covers, trying not to disturb everything. And I'm typing, and I look over and I see, you know, my lady sleeping under the weight of my bills.
Yeah.
Literally, you know.
Yeah.
And it was just, I gotta change the situation, and I think that happens for people. They get. You know, they
get to where it's a must and not a should.
You call it your event so often threshold.
Yes.
That was it. For me, I was so fine with being broke. It didn't matter really to me.
Yeah.
And then see family and loved ones.
Yeah.
That was a huge shift.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of emotion around money, but then you have this title, Master the Game.
I know a lot of people got upset.
They're like, game. And I'd love to hear, it's a game though. And it's interesting because you've interviewed all these billionaires. Do they think of it as a game, and why call it a game?
Well, it's interesting. When I first sent it out, the idea of the book and the title of the book, Mark Benioff is a dear friend of mine. I'm here at Salesforce or Dreamforce with him, and he started Salesforce to my company, to my material. He tells people Salesforce wouldn't exist. They're now doing $5 billion. You know, when he first started leaving Oracle, he was saying, I'm going to build a $100 million company.
I know all his employees go through your technology.
Yeah, all of them use it, So, but the reason I bring it up is he says, Tony, you're not about money. He said, and he says, in a game, he goes, you know, money, it's a tense word. I said, that's why I'm using it, because people have such I mean, there's only a few topics that bring this much emotion to people. You know, sex, politics, and religion, and maybe money. Those four,
Right.
you get a reaction because you don't talk about these things, you know, in the general public around. You don't talk about it's just not the subject most people want to get into because it usually creates some kind of emotion that isn't necessarily positive. Because if people have a lot of money, sometimes they feel a little, you know, guilty, and if they don't have it, they feel embarrassed or ashamed.
Right.
You know, and money has no power. Money has the power to create, and money has the power to destroy. You can, you know, create an opportunity, you can give, you can deliver, you can make things happen, you can destroy things. You know, you can use it as an expression of your love or your hate. It can be any of those things. So money to me really is just a tool to be used in a life of service, in a life where you serve your family and your friends and yourself. But
if it's a reality of your life, why not master it a little
Exactly.
bit? If it's there and you have to deal with it on a daily basis, why not do something about it, right?
But when you talk to the most wealthy people in the world, they all see it as a game. I say all, the vast majority. And why else would somebody who's just made $2, $3, or $4, $10 billion work 14 hours a day? Because when you realize it's a game, then you realize that means there's some rules. Now, some people say, well, game, that makes it sound frivolous. Not all games are frivolous. I say games are a reflection of life. Some people play to win. Some people stand on the sideline and watch everybody else and clap or, you know, be upset or point fingers. You know, how do you play is what I say to people. And what I say to people, you walk through these 7 steps with me, you will win this game, and you got a chance to win it really big because there's nothing in this book that's me. Emotional and psychological, yes, that's been my expertise for 36 years. But most people know that I've been coaching for 21 years, one of the top 10 financial traders in the history of the world. His name's Paul Tudor Jones. 28 straight years of victories at a company level. I've been working for 21 consecutive years. He emails me every day, gives me his report, what he's done, measuring it. I get to go see him every 90 days. I've been with him in the tech crash of 2000 and watched him make money and figure out how to do it. I've been with him in 9/11. I did it when the subprime crisis happened and the whole world was melting down. And in 2008, Paul made almost 30%. I mean, and when everybody else was losing. I'm just
because he knows the rules of the game.
He knows the rules of the game, and so I got his rules. I got Carl Icahn's rules. I got a man named Ray Dalio. Most people outside the financial business don't know his name, but he's been called the Steve Jobs of investing, the Da Vinci of investing, because this is a man who you had to give him $5 billion to get his advice and give him $100 million to start. That was 10 years ago. Now you can't get him no matter what. Governments, you're sitting down with him and the Prime Minister of China calls to interrupt the meeting because he needs a little coaching from Ray. So I got him to share me what he does.
I want people to know about the book. That guy, you got literally his formula and how he does it in this book. I mean, something that literally billionaires are looking for and calling him on. You broke it down.
What was beautiful was when I got to these people, I got to these people by impact and by referral. Because I worked with Paul Tudor, he introduced me some. And then when I got to them and they saw, I'm donating all the money to this book. This is not about me. I want what's real. I want to bring the average American, somebody who's just starting the journey, maybe a millennial or somebody's getting out of college and got all this debt and they don't know how am I going to turn things around. Or maybe a soccer mom or a divorced man or woman saying, I'm trying to take care of my kids and my life and how am I going to build a future and put my kids through college? Or maybe even a sophisticated investor who wants to know what Dalio does. I want to hit all those buttons and make it real. So when I went in the beginning, I got to guys like Carl Icahn. I mean, Carl Icahn, to give you an idea, people have no clue. If you would have invested in Carl Icahn in 1968, Carl Icahn, Kiplinger did a study, your average annual return, with Carl Icahn is 31%.
Wow.
With Warren Buffett, it's 20%.
Wow.
In the last 14 years, if you'd invested in Icahn Enterprise, if you're along with him there, you would have made 1,600%. If you were in the S&P 500, you got 76%.
Right.
I mean, he has dwarfed everyone on Earth. Time Magazine did a cover and they said, Master of the Universe. When I went to go see him, he did a tweet about Apple. And in 1 hour, Apple stock went up $17 billion with a B. This guy is unbelievable, but he's also rather direct and gruff. I love him now, but I went in to go see him. I thought, this guy, to get to this guy's brain and find out what he's doing, and it's the day he cashes in and makes $2 billion on Netflix that day, and I'm just like so smart. And the first thing happens, he agrees to it, and then my camera crew shows up, like your team, and he goes, I don't want a camera crew. I said, wait a second, this morning your secretary said you approved it. I said, I don't want him. Right? And it was like, okay, he gets taken advantage of. So he's sensitized, and last minute, like, who is this guy? What's it going to be? And then, okay, well, my sound crew, no sound crew. I said, well, what am I supposed to do? He said, take notes. You got 10 minutes. I'm like, holy shit. What am I going to get up in 10 minutes, right?
This is the game. He's setting up the game for you. He's setting up the game.
Set me down and see how can I play,
Yeah,
right? How am I going to play under
right.
pressure with his rules, right?
That's right.
And what's beautiful is he got who I really was, what I was really about. I dug in with him, and 3 hours later, my average interview was supposed to be 45 minutes. They're 3-hour average. And he's sharing things, hugging me and saying, you can really make a difference in the world, and gave me a quote from the book where he said, all investors will be illuminated by this. Sophisticated or unsophisticated, it's going to change their life. So when those things happen, then I go to, let's say, for example, to Vanguard. I go find the founder of Vanguard, Jack Bogle, and 45 minutes, I'm with him 4.5 hours. He wrote a quote at the end that says the most probing interviewed, and what did he say was the word? The most probing, and I forget what it was, but the deepest interview basically that he's generated.
3 hours.
Yeah, no, he said in his career.
Wow.
63 years he's been interviewed by everybody. So that tells me that I was able to engage him pretty damn well, and he supported the book as well. And then Ray, the most important one is Ray. Out of all 50 people, it's like they're all phenomenal. But with Ray, I prepared for 18 hours, literally around the clock, stayed up that night till 5 in the morning, slept 3 hours so I could go be with him because I wanted to pitch and catch with him. I knew if I was going to engage him, this was one of the smartest minds literally on earth. And so I was ready. And then I got there and I was able to do it. And it turned out he'd been a fan of mine for 20 plus years, listening to my stuff. So we created this great chemistry. So after 3 hours, almost 2.5 hours at that point, I said, Ray, this question I asked them all. If you couldn't give any of your money, none of it, to your kids, all you could give them was the best of what you learned in the form of a formula, a set of strategies or a portfolio, what would it be? He said, well, Tony, my alpha fund is, it's averaged 21% per year for the last 23 straight years. He said, that's been our average. He said, before expenses and so forth, before fees. He said, but that takes 1,500 people to do, and who are the best in the business, and I'm one of the best poker players, and even for me, that's tough to do. What am I going to do when I'm not here for all the things I care about? My kids, what am I going to do for all the nonprofits that I support? And he said, I started tinkering and saying, the best investors are always asking a different question. And he said, I started thinking, everybody thinks a balanced portfolio is the way you protect yourself. Mm-hmm. He said, but a balanced portfolio, half your money in stocks, half in bonds, or 60% in stocks, 40 in bonds. He said, in all the meltdowns, it doesn't work. 2008, they both went down. So this idea we have about asset allocation, which is the most important part of, by the way, investing for anybody listening, asset allocation is where do you put your money and what proportions? Mm-hmm. What's the right formula? He said, it's all wrong. And he said, I dug and I dug and I dug and I figured something out. He said, I figured out that stocks are 3 times more volatile, more intense up and down than bonds. So when you think you're 50-50 or 60-40, you're really 95% at risk and 5% secure. He goes, when I figured that out, he said, I figured a new way, and I figured a way to make money no matter what happens, because all investments do well in different environments. And he's divided the universe of what can happen in 4 seasons. And he said, I figured out a formula so that you can make money in any season, and your losses, when you lose, everybody loses, but when you lose is so small by comparison. So he explains the whole thing to me.
That formula, you kind of have, this is the basis for the game.
It's the basis for the game
where
from
do things
the
go
master.
And win. Right.
That's why I said, what I tell people, if you're going to master the game, you want to learn from the masters in the game, right? You don't want to try and learn your own. He's been doing it 40 years, and most people can't do what he does. So he's the best of the best. So I said to him, I said, explain the whole thing. So I'm going to put that in the book. It's going to blow people away. It's incredible. You're incredibly generous. But I said, look, what really makes this work is knowing the exact percentages. Because, like a lot of people try to copy that. They'll say, it's inspired by Dalio funds. And they don't do anything close to Dalio. They're not in the same universe as Dalio. It's just a marketing theme. So I said, I want to know the real numbers. He goes, Tony. He said, it's complex.
We can't put this in a $20-some book.
Well, no, he didn't say that, but he did say, that's when he gave me the whole $5 billion. He goes, look, it takes $5 billion to work with me and $100 million initial investment. I said, but you just told me that you haven't taken in anybody in any amount of money for 10 years. You don't want any more money. He goes, yeah. And I said, you're also giving away half of your $14 billion net worth. I mean, the guy's unbelievably generous. I said, give me the secret sauce. Right? He goes, Tony, it's too complex. I said, I know it's too complex. Make it simple. I can make it simple. He goes, well, there's some leverage. I said, show me one without leverage. He goes, well, I said, come on, give me the secret sauce. Give it to me, right? Help the little guy out. And I got him laughing. And he finally said, well, I could give you something. It won't be absolutely perfect. I said, your idea of not perfect will be better than anybody else's top piece. And there's like chills in my body as he started describing to me. And I got the video going, and I'm capturing like crazy. And at the end, he goes, yeah. He said, you go run those numbers and you can bring them back to me and I'll look them over and make sure they're right. But he said, I think that would do it for the average person, and they could, we'll check the rebalancing, probably once a year rebalance. And he said, they could do it with most of it with ETFs and things like that.
And they'll beat the market.
And he said, so why don't you go check that out? So I now have some partners in a variety of portions of the business and the financial area, and I have a great company that I'm associated with, which is called Hightower. It's the 5th largest registered investment advisory. It's the best in the world. They strip out all the fees. They make all the banks compete to give you the best fees. You see everything transparent, $30 billion in assets, but they only work with ultra wealthy people. And I wanted to get them to work with the average person. So I went back to them. I went to 2 other organizations, said, run these numbers. Let's do a 30-year run, like the most volatile times, right? 40-year run. Let's do a 75-year run. Just see it. Most people, they look at something over a 5 or 10-year period. I want to see all those. Do the 5 or 10-year period too. 10-year period blew away the S&P, but here's what's really unbelievable. In the last 30 years, it lost money only 4 times.
Wow.
And one of those 4 times, it lost 0.003%. So it was break even.
Right.
So you really practically lost 3 times in 30 years. But here's the most unbelievable thing. The average loss is 1.9%. But the average upside was just under 10.
Wow.
So if you
for 30-year spread.
For 30-year spread. Then same numbers in 40 years. At 75 years, it's 85% successful. 30, 40, 75 years. You make money 85% of the time. And when you lose, average loss over 75 years was 1.6%. The most he ever lost in 75 years was 3.9%, less than 4%, and that was in 2008 when the market from top to bottom was 51% down. So if I said to you, you could go to Vegas and you could bet as much as you wanted, and if you bet, you'd be right 85% of the time, and if you lost, you'd lose an average of 1.9 or 1.6%. How much would you bet? How long would you bet? How much you go for?
Right.
So look,
that's what the surprise I think people are going to find in the book is because when I'm reading it, it's not like you're talking about this conceptual level. You're telling this story, but you're not talking about conceptual level. This is it's
exactly what you can do.
And
by the way, everybody around me said, "This is a business. Don't put that in the book. Like we want to do this over here. We want to run a fund." I said, "You can go run a fund, and people want you to do it. Great." But I said it was offered in the spirit of helping everybody, so it's in the book. I mean,
it's in the book.
You invest in this $28 retail book. I don't know what you get it at Amazon, right. $25, $24 less, whatever it is. But I mean, and you're going to get what a guy that spent $5 billion to get. Now, it's not. There's no guarantee of the future. It's the same as the past. But what's unique about this is designed so it doesn't matter what the future is. Right. Like most people make money because they anticipate what the market's going to do. He's saying, I don't care what the market's doing. Any market that happens, this is how you win. And if you lose, this is how you limit the loss. And it's something you do 15 minutes a year. It's not just one.
one chapter. I
got
to be blown away is by how many of these strategies are in there. But it's not just, I really want people to know it's not a conceptual thing.
No.
This is like literally, hey, you could take this and you could run it, or you could take it to a financial advisor, which we'll talk about your feelings there. And it's really applicable. It's actionable stuff, which I think is why this book is going to crush it.
Well, I want to say one thing about though. In the very beginning, I tell people this is coming, and I've got like David Swensen. David Swensen is the chief investment officer of Yale. He took their $1 billion endowment and turned it into 23.9, practically $24 billion in 2 decades. He is the greatest institutional investor in the world. He is the rock star, the Warren Buffett institutional areas. Sat down with him, and he gave me the exact portfolio also. His does a little more than 10%. His does like 13%, but has more volatility. So if you want to take more risk, you do that too. So this is a book filled with them, but I tell people the first chapter, I know you're going to want to turn to read those chapters.
Right.
Or you're going to want to turn and read these interviews with the top 12 guys in the history of the world. Don't, because there's 7 steps. And if you know the portfolio, but you don't really know, for example, the emotional pieces in you that make you go up and down,
right.
If you don't understand how to change that, if you don't know what your real goals and numbers are and how long it's going to take to get there without a plan, if you don't know what the right asset allocation is, you don't want to put everything in one thing, even Dalio, right? So if you don't understand those things, you're not going to maximize. And the book is fun because along the way, I'm giving you stories and examples that are real and practical. And it all comes from Nobel laureates, the best on earth, who figured out behavioral Nobel laureates. Here's what to do to beat your natural human tendencies so you don't have to have discipline. It'll just do it automatically for you. And I'm showing you what the best of the best do along the way.
As you're doing that, I think it's important because people hear these big names, they hear $1 billion, and the average person watching goes, I don't know what institutional investing means. I don't know billions of dollars.
Yes.
Like you said, I'm just trying to scrape together $24 here. Yeah. And so often they don't start because they just think, I don't have any money. Yeah. Why would I read a book about money if I don't have any yet?
It's perfect. The 3rd chapter of the book, I explain the biggest reason why most people never become financially free or even stable, much less wealthy, is because the vast majority of people think, I got to make this big score. I'm going to make this investment in Apple. It's going to go crazy. I'm going to make this thing happen, and I'm going to pour all my money into one investment. I'm going to pour all my money even in my own business, as strong as your own business is. Those 96% of businesses don't make it. If you don't diversify, you die. And so they're thinking this big score. And when you see the people, and I fill it in the book, filled with them, who've had the biggest scores in history, the vast majority of them go bankrupt or end up really, really practically bankrupt. So I mean, I don't care if it's Kurt. I don't know if you remember Kurt Schilling, the Red Sox. I know I have some Boston friends, and I mean, 2 Major League Baseball World Series makes $100 million, completely broke, bankrupt.
Right. See those stories all the
You're probably
time.
not old to remember Kim Basinger in 9.5 weeks, but most in my generation remember
yeah.
that. This one made more money than any actress in history. She's making $20 million for a picture. Bankrupt. Mike Tyson made more money than most people would dream of in multiple lifetimes. He made $500 million, $500 million in income. Bankrupt. So, and I go on, Billy Joel next to bankruptcy. Well, I don't care who they are, the most brilliant people in the world, because it doesn't matter how much money you have, you'll spend it. So then I give you examples of a guy that never made more than $14,000 a year, Theodore Johnson, worked for UPS, and end of his life, he gave away half the money to charity, so everybody knows what the number was, $70 million. Because he understood compounding. Like everybody intellectually understands compounding, but very few people do it. So on the book, I show you little things, like give away that little pizza each week, and here's $500,000 that you can have by compounding. Right. Look at what you have, and I show you how to take the tiniest amount and automate it so you get there. Now, there's a lot of people who say, take your Starbucks money and put it here and get your return, and that's nice, but there aren't any 12% mutual funds anymore that compound annually. Those stories from the past don't exist. So I show you, what do you do with that money so you maximize it? And also, what do you do right now so you can enjoy it today, not just someday when you retire, because that's the other mistake. It's like if you make money, it's something that you're just holding on to so someday you can feel good, then you don't have much of a life. So this is a lifestyle book, as well as how do you create that abundance and wealth for the long term.
What would a person earning $35,000 to $50,000 learn and take away from the book versus someone who's $1 million or $10 million above? Do you think that they're really going to take something different from the book?
I don't think so. I think the fundamentals are the same. That's the beauty of the book. That's why I designed it that way. But I'll give you an example. Somebody just makes $35,000 a year. Section 2 of this book, the first section, what I teach people to do, it's these 7 steps. Just kind of give people a context. Is the first thing you got to do is you got to tap the power that every wealthy person does. You have to stop being a consumer, and you got to now become an investor. You got to own something. And you got to say, I don't have any money, but I don't give a damn, I'm going to start with 10%, 5%. There was a study where they started with 3%, just 3% off the top, automating it, putting aside. You don't see the money. It goes into this, what we call freedom fund. Not savings account, but a freedom fund where you're going to really build it into freedom. Using a tool called Save More for Tomorrow. This was designed by Nobel Prize winner and his partner from UCLA, Shlomo Bernazio. I'm probably pronouncing his last name poorly, I apologize, but brilliant guys. They came up with this idea. It's easy to do something in the future because it's not now. If I say to you, you're going to diet in a week, you go, yeah, of course.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
Diet right now, that's good for a few hours, right? And so what they figured out was that if you could only save even 3% of your money, if making $35,000 a year, you owe money, you take 3%, 4%, 5%, ideally 10, but some middle number. And you just commit that anytime you get a raise in the future, you do it automatically your boss, that 3% of that money is going to now go into your freedom fund. They did this in the...
Where you don't see it, just automatically happens.
That's the secret.
That's the secret.
Because you
got to automatically go away.
Yeah, and it goes and it starts being invested.
You don't have to write a check.
You don't write a check.
Somewhere.
You don't transfer it. You never
comes
count
from
it
the
as
boss,
yours.
goes over here.
It's just like if they raise taxes 3%, that's the same thing. Only the tax is for you. It's for your future self.
That's right.
What they found is they took middle American blue collar workers in one company, and they started them, most of them at just 3.5% savings. Then they did this improvement. In 12 years, the average worker was saving 17%. Now, you save 17%, you're going to be wealthy because compounding through time, it'll get you where you want to be. You'll certainly be financially stable and secure and free. So I show people how to do that. But then the second thing, to answer your question, what will they get? Even people making $35,000 a year, if they work at a company, most people have some form of 401k or something of that nature, usually. Or if they're doing any investing, that's where most people start as an investor. Maybe they auto-enrolled them. They didn't even want to do it, but the company auto-enrolled you, right? Well, there's a gentleman that we worked with here, that Hilton Smith, who really did all the research. And this guy's brilliant. The guy's got a degree in economics. And he went through all of his mutual funds, all of his 401k, and he found that he thought he was paying 1%. It's called the expense ratio. Most people say, I'm paying this percentage. But he found really overall that the average, Forbes found, the average mutual fund, to give you an idea, it costs you 3.1% because there's 17 other fees he found
Right.
that are under different names. You have to have a PhD to figure out that are hidden fees.
Right. Most of the wealth you supposedly earn, it's not happening. It's going to them first. And then
if you're making 6% return and you've got 3% in fees, you're making 3%. Oh, by the way, then you got to pay taxes.
Over the course of decades. Right? It's
Each
gone.
year it's
Yeah,
happening.
right.
Each year they're taking that out.
That's
So
right.
you're not compounding at the same level.
Right.
So he figured out for someone making $30,000 a year, it's $150,000 minimum that you're throwing away. I mean, try this on for size. The second part of the book, second step is before you get in the game, know the rules. Be the insider. Because when a person with money meets a person with experience, we all know what happens. Phrase has been said, person with experience ends up with your money. So what I want to do is save you that. And I give you 9 myths, 9 lies that you're going to make sure never happen to you again. They're all marketed. And one of those myths, to give you an idea, is fees don't matter, or it's only 1%. That's what everybody says. Right. And I go through and show you systematically what it means. If you pay 1%, a real 1%, which almost nobody does, versus 2 versus 3, you could have 3 people, they start at the same age, they put in the same amount of money, they invest in the same stocks, same bonds, same mutual funds, and 30 years later, they show up and one's got 77% more money. You know, they start out with $1 million, you know, they got 7 million, the other guy's got 4. If it's $100,000, 700,000 versus 4. The amount of money difference of those fees. And if I said to you, Brendon, here's the deal, I want you to make an investment with me, here's how it's gonna work. I want you to give me your money, you're gonna put up all the money, you're gonna take all the risks. If it loses money, if it loses everything, you lose everything.
There's no consequence here.
Yeah, no, you put up all the money, take all the risk, you take all the losses. But if you make money, and even if you don't make money, I get paid.
Right.
And I get, over the course of your lifetime of investing, 30, 40 years, I'm gonna take 60%. Would you make that deal?
Nobody would. But they don't know that they are all day long. You
That's
know
right. And that is what you do with the average mutual fund today.
Yeah.
Because the average mutual fund with Forbes is 3.1%. If you're in a 401k, instead of saving money, many times when you add all the other fees, according to Forbes, it's 4.1%. What that does to your ability to ever get financially free is it basically decimates it. And how's that possible? Jack Bogle, the head of Vanguard, taught me this. He said, Tony, watch. Because people don't know. They don't do the math. For every 1% you give away over the course of your lifetime, that's approximately 20% of your total take. So if there's 3% in fees, you gave up 60%. You took the risks, you were on the line, they took no risks, and they're gonna take 60% over the lifetime of what you're doing. He said, it's highway robbery. That's why you can go invest in those same stocks with Vanguard on an index, and you pay 14 basis points, which that's another term. By the way, every time I use a term in the book, I explain like basis points. What the hell is a basis points? It's 0.14%. If someone says 25 basis points, it means 1/4%.
Right.
So if I say an index fund, you know what it is? I explain what it is in the book so that
You
someone
broke it down.
sophisticated
People
knows.
get it.
Yeah, people get it along the way, and I give an example so they see what it is. So what you do is you become an insider. Because what happens is every type of powerful institution or organization or field has its own language because that's how they keep power. So if you go to your lawyer, there's a lot of things you and I could easily do ourselves, but we don't know the right legalese. So the words that you could say in English, they say in legalese, and we can't do it, so we got to pay them for it. You know, a good lawyer's a good lawyer, but sometimes there are things you could do. You know, some of the online companies are charging $20 what some lawyers used to charge $2,000 for because it's boilerplate.
You did an amazing job in the book of like literally empowering people to go, oh, just go here, check out this website, go try this, do this.
It'll show you exactly
Anybody
what
can do it.
Anybody can do it.
I mean, anybody can do it.
But I'll
which
give you an
is a great
example
thing.
in the medical field.
Yeah.
If I said to you in the medical field, and you read the book so you know this, but if I said the average person here, did you know that according to the Journal of Medical Association, JAMA, that the number 3 killer of all human beings in the United States is from iatrogenic causes? Most people hear iatrogenic and they think, is that a form of Ebola? You know, is that some tropical disease? I have no idea what it is. Why would you use the word iatrogenic? Nobody knows the hell it is. Iatrogenic means physician or hospital induced.
Right.
Which to be fair is when you think about all the doctors, all the number of people they deal with, unfortunately a lot of people die because somebody's made a mistake. So 1/3 of all deaths, 225,000, come from iatrogenic. Why don't they just say 1/3 of all deaths are hospital induced or physician induced? Because
no one would go there.
No one's go there.
Yes.
So they come up with a term. Well, what you see in the financial field is there's tons of iatrogenic language. So you don't even know it's a fee. Because they don't call it a fee, they call it something else. But it's money out of your pocket.
And it's basically paying for their marketing or for their operations. It has nothing to do with your personal
When
wealth.
you go to your
It's just
401k, when you go to your 401k and you take a look at your 401k and you're trying to decide what should I do and you have no idea, and you say I'm going to go to this 5-star Morningstar fund, go do the research. You'll find at the end of 10 years out of 250 5-star funds, 4 are 5 stars. All my hedge fund guys, they love that. You're buying high and you're going to sell it low when it drops, and then you're going to buy another one high and it's going to sell low. They buy low and make money high. So what I do in this book is, one step at a time, because I'm talking 100 miles an hour. I know I'm passionate about this stuff. I'm crazy. But it's like, I just want people to have this. I'm tired. I want to level the playing field. I'm tired of people being taken advantage of. And what I've done is put together this step so that any person, average person, go through and go, I get it. And by the way, it'll be your dinner talk. You go, did you know? Did you? Like, for example, did you know?
It fires people up. The myths alone. That one chapter on the myths, you're like, that's true? And then you're upset because you know you've been sort of taken by an industry or taken by a lack of knowledge.
A system.
You just didn't know.
Yeah, you didn't know. If you don't understand the system will take advantage of you. Right. You know, that's why I say you either master money or money masters you. And what's cool is it's a lot simpler than people think, because once you know a little bit of the language, and once you know what to look out for, what to do is pretty damn simple.
You go to the tools, you set it up, and then
you and then you learn from people that are the best on earth instead of some average person who may be trying to market to you. I mean, I'll give you an example. Where do most people in America put their money? Mutual funds. Most people in the world put their money in mutual funds. Well, that presupposes that somebody's going to actively study the market, and they're going to come up with a list of things to invest in, and they're going to do better than if I just owned an index fund, which is a simple word for you can own like 500, all the best companies, you know, in the S&P 500, the top 500. You can own a piece of all of them with even $10,000, $1,000, $100. You get a piece of them all, a micro piece. So I can do that. If I do that, it costs me next to nothing, 14 basis points, 0.14 in cost, not 3%, which is like 3,000% more in expense, right? Compounded. So you go, okay, but a mutual fund manager is going to do better. But what's the facts? All the research out there, I don't care if I was talking to Ray Dalio, Warren Buffett says you're not going to beat the index fund. So why would you pay for it?
That was the advice he gave his family. If he was gone, he said, put it in an index fund. Put it in Vanguard 500 index, let it ride, because you're not going to beat it.
Check this number out. If you're listening, you got to watch and listen. Over any 10-year period of time, 96% of all mutual funds don't match the market that you could have got for next to nothing.
Mm-hmm. And most mutual fund people were telling you buy mutual funds, they don't even own their own mutual funds.
They don't own the products. I'm glad you read that.
They don't own the products.
The very people are managing. If it was so great, wouldn't they put their own money in it? Right. More than half have no money in their own mutual fund, not a dime.
And most of them are not what we would call financially free, depending on where they're at.
That means if 96% fail, 4% succeed. So your brain says, I'm smart, I'm going to find the 4%. Well, if you go to Morningstar and you pick the ones that are 5 stars, that's not going to be your 4% in most cases. So how are you going to do it? What are your chances of victory? What are your chances of picking the right one? So the best metaphor I can tell you is most people have played 21 or blackjack at some point, right? We all know play, right? You get to 21, you get above 21, you're screwed, you're out of the game, right? So let's say you and I are playing blackjack and boom, you get 2 face cards worth 20 points. If your inner idiot was to say, hit me, right? Right. Well, you got to get a card, only one card will work. Yeah. You got an 8% chance of winning at blackjack with 2 face cards. You got a 4% chance of picking the right mutual fund. So when you get that, and then you look at Warren Buffett, and by the way, he bet a group of hedge fund guys 5 years ago, protege partners, he said, you pick a group of hedge funds, pick the top 5 you want. Hedge funds, this is what the wealthy people invest in. And I'll beat you with the index, I bet you $1 million. And right now, it's not yet done, I think there's 4 more years left, but he's up like 20%, 25% above it. So I want people to know, when you read this book, you can read it 1 chapter a day, not as fast as I'm talking. You can take in the stories and examples. You'll understand
take one action a day.
And that's exactly what I do. It's roughly, there's a few small chapters, so it's a little more than that, but it's roughly a chapter a day. Now, if you're crazy like me, some people will do a section a week for 7 weeks.
I read it in 2.5 days.
That's all like me, that's what I was going to say. You're crazy like me. I just go swallow this thing in a weekend, but I'm crazy, but you can do whatever tempo you want. But what you're going to leave with this is you're going to be armed. You're not going to be taken advantage of. I did this book because in 2008, I come from a lot of pain, and I don't want anybody else to have pain. I mean suffering around economics. And like the guy that cut my hair couldn't put his kids through school anymore. A dear friend of mine, his retirement, which he thought he was 3 years away, is going to have to work for 20 more years. I mean, it was billionaire guys telling me, holy shit, what's happening? Yeah. And so I thought something's going to happen. Government's going to change the policies, the laws, and there was all this talk about it. In 2010, nothing's changed. And then I watched a documentary that I recommend anybody watch, but you need to be prepared to watch if you're going to do it. And it's called Inside Job, and Matt Damon did the vocals for it. But what they did is systematically walk through and show you exactly how how the economy was almost destroyed worldwide by a few number of people, and they show you who it is and how they did it. And then you see what their punishment was to be put in charge of the turnaround. Right. And then they taxed you and I and everyone else in this country and gave them our money for their mistakes. If you and I lost money, we lost money. They got our money under the guise of keeping the system put together. It is the greatest ripoff in the world. I mean, if you want to be angry, so when you end this thing, you're either totally depressed or totally angry. I'm the angry type when I see people taking advantage of.
But now they have something they can grab your book and literally.
Well, that's what I did. I wrote the book
like,
for that reason.
Yeah,
I wrote the book, said there's got to be an answer, and I got access. So since I got access, I'm going to go find something, and it's been a 4-year journey to bring this to people today. So I'm very excited for this day.
I know, worked so hard on it. 2 mindset things that I just thought were amazing in the book. One simple question I'd love you to talk about that you pose to people. You say, why do you invest?
Yes.
And I would love you to talk about how they usually answer versus what they should answer. Because
Yes.
I read that, and I'm fairly well read in this area, but
Yeah.
I thought, that's brilliant. That one little distinction in their mind,
Yes.
if they knew why they invested and they knew the right answer to that, that might
Yes.
change the way they perceive their financial freedom.
Well, it's a good point. Most people, when you ask them why they invest, they don't really know. They'll say things like, well, so that, I can retire someday. Or they'll say something like, I have to build up my assets, or I got to build up my financial strength, or there's only one reason we invest. And when you lose sight of this, the financial system will eat you up. You're investing for income. Income is the only thing that'll buy you financial security and freedom. Income is what gives you your home. Income is what gives you food. Income lets you travel the world. Income lets you put your kids through college. Income lets you throw a party. Income is everything. And the reason I say that is many people, they'll say to me, I say, how you doing? They go, well, I built up $1 million in my 401k. And I go, you don't have $1 million in your 401k. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, first of all, half of that's the government's.
Right. The second you take any money,
50% tax back for this person. So you have $500,000. The person looks depressed. I said, better to know the truth because I can show you how to get free. But you have to know the truth. The truth will set you free, and better know it so we can do something about it. He goes, wait. He goes, but wait, I got tax. I said, you got tax deferral, but you could have done that in a different way, and all that money, that $1 million, would have been all of yours. I can show you how to do that for the future, moving forward, what to do. But the thing is, you're looking for income. If you think about assets, you could build those assets up and you have a 2008 and all of a sudden half it's gone, and now what happens to your income? And also, when you talk to financial planners, which are interesting group of people, there's a study of the Financial Planning Association, I put it in the book, where they asked 2,500 financial planners, do you have a financial plan? And I couldn't even believe they answered it. 47% said they didn't have one themselves.
The ones who were willing to tell the truth.
Tell it in their own association. They did it, and the reason is most of them are overwhelmed. The economy's changed so much. To be fair to them, it's like the cobbler's kids don't have shoes.
Right.
I mean, it's just like,
totally true.
Are you kidding me? So it's not enough to go to a financial planner, and most of them have been trained to say, okay, we're going to get you financially secure in your future retirement. So here's what we're going to do. How much income? You make $50,000, $100,000, $20,000, okay, $100,000 a year. We needed 10 times that for you to have financial freedom. So
they're trying to get you towards an egg number.
That's right. And
right?
the egg.
We want this egg, this group of money.
Which is not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. In fact, it's a good idea to know what your target is. But they tell you it's 10 times, you make 100,000, it's 10 times that, it's $1 million. That presupposes that $1 million in a secure environment will give you a 10% return each year to give you 100,000 a year for the rest of your life.
Right.
$1 million
to
times
draw off a
10%.
certain amount of interest to get a check off that interest every single
So you
year.
can continue to live.
Right.
Because people used to live 6 years back in the 30s. Like 65, they made Social Security 65 because people lived to 62.
Average age 88 now, I think, for
It's
women.
87, yeah, for
84
women.
for men or something.
But in a couple, if you're married, 50% chance want to live to age 92. And the number's growing. So now we have 20 and 30-year retirements. So the number one fear amongst baby boomers is not death. Death is number 2, but number 2 by percentages way down here. Number 1 is running out of money while I'm alive. And they should have that fear because most of them, 1 out of 3 baby boomers has $1,000 saved. So they have no source of income coming in. All they have is a little tiny check from Social
Pay
Security.
their heating bill for 3 months and be done.
They're done. They're completely done. So what I wanted to do is show people there's ways, just like there's, first of all, you want to invest where you can figure out what that number really is. And I show people how to do that in the book.
Yeah.
And it isn't times 10. Then I show you how to make that number smaller by having tax efficiency, because every one of these great investors had certain things in common, and one was tax efficiency. Because if you earn more, but you don't keep more, what does it matter? Just like fees, the biggest bill you're ever going to pay in your life is taxes. And instead of being mad at the IRS, I just look at them as like Switzerland. Their job is to come in and take as much money as they can from as many people as they can. Your job is, with absolute honesty, with truth, and with the law behind you, and with total morality, to avoid as much as humanly possible.
To use the rules of the system, like you show. It's like, hey, look, did you know you can do this and keep this much more interest, and this much more interest over a period of time gains you this? I mean, it's just
you can save.
It's mathematical. That's why I think it bothers people. They're like, they don't like math.
But I show people, you don't have to know math, but I just show people, if I could show you how to retire 10 years earlier, or have twice as much money in the same time, or get to your goal 30 to 50% faster, would you want to know how? Well, the ultra wealthy know how to do it. But now, because of some changes that happen in the marketplace, average people with tiny amounts of money can do the exact same thing, and that money is now yours. And one more thing. Most people know the value of life insurance. We don't like it, but I don't want my family to get in trouble if I die. So most of us buy some life insurance. But there's another question. What if you live? You know?
Right.
I'd like some insurance that if I live, I'm going to live well. So I was with Alicia Linnell, who's the head of retirement research for Boston College, one of the brightest women in the world, used to work for the Fed. And she said, Tony, one of the most exciting tools that's come out is they now have income insurance or longevity insurance. So when you're planning for your future, you only have so much money. You either try to rationalize it, hoping that it'll make it, and then maybe you don't get to use your money or you run out. She says, what you can do with this is you can get some insurance now that says, if you live to this age, from that age on, for as long as you live, you have $50,000 a year. And it doesn't matter if you live 10, 20, 30 years. It doesn't matter how much money you've accumulated in investments. And it's brilliant.
Separate.
And it's cheap.
Right.
Like,
wow.
How old are you?
36.
36, okay. I'm 50.
37, gosh, 37.
37, oh, that's good. You'll be doing that for a while. After 35, you keep forgetting. You always keep down. I'm 54 years old. I can't even believe it, that name. At my age, I can get some income insurance where I could put aside, I'm fairly well-to-do, so I have the ability to do larger numbers, but let's say I did one for $100,000, and I get $75,000 a year at the age of 80 for as long as I live. I lived to 95 years old, I get that. So $100,000 gives me 75 grand a year. You couldn't do that
you couldn't even,
in a million years.
Yeah, you couldn't.
I'm using a larger number, you can do a smaller number. And at your age, it's even better. You could say, I'm gonna take a tiny amount of money and it's got more time to compound, and they'll give you a policy that'll give you incredible income as long as you live. So the book is filled with ways to make sure you have income, not assets that go
And
there.
even if you do, because most people watching, they might have life insurance, they might have
Yes.
policies, but you help them say, okay, let's talk about annuities here.
Yes.
What did you get in your policy? Is the
Yes.
policy the thing that's actually going to print you income?
Yes.
And that was the brilliant part about it, because you take in a lot of people have 401ks, they have IRAs, they have life insurance, but they genuinely don't know anything about them.
They don't.
They got it because the company said get it, and they're losing money every single
day.
year. It's not compounding. Because it's not compounding, the financial wealth is just not happening for them. And so I think that's important people to understand. This is not just a book of big, bold, crazy new ideas. The formulas are there.
Yes.
What's also there is you probably already have these things.
That's right.
If you just made a different decision on each three of these buckets,
They change your entire financial life. Could be the difference between being totally financially secure or having to be a greeter at Walmart at 65 or 70
that
years
was
old.
when I read it. I said the book is necessary.
Yeah.
For that reason,
Yeah.
because some people think about money and they go, I don't want big bold bets. I don't want to try things, and they always think that. Like you said, they think it's a big hit. But you're saying in many of these chapters, here's what you probably already got going.
That's right.
Do you know this answer, and this answer? And if you just change it to be this answer,
It's money straight in your pocket. It's for your
life.
life, for as long as you live.
For life, I love that.
Yeah.
You've achieved so much. So what does financial freedom mean to you now?
Oh my gosh. Financial freedom means life on your terms. Financial freedom means living in the neighborhood that is safe for your family and beautiful and matches your ideal versus settling. Financial freedom means the capacity to bring any resource you need to make your family, your friends' life better. Financial freedom is, financial freedom, I'll give you an example of financial freedom. This is a long time ago. Because I chose to be financially free earlier on, right? Other than saying something I was going to get to someday. I remember I called my mom. We grew up really tough environment, as I said, and not pretty environments by any stretch of the imagination. And we always dreamed of being near the ocean. So I called my mom and I said, Mom, I've done well enough that I really think, I can't live there because I got to travel, but I think I can get this condo on the beach. And in Huntington Beach, it's a place we used to go and walk the pier. We'd drive 3 hours to go there, and it was just like this magical place. And I said, I want you to meet me there and help me decide whether I really do it or not. And she said, oh, of course I'll come. So she meets me, down there at the beach, and we go look at this condo, and it's this magnificent view, and it's just, a spectacular place. And she's like a little kid. She's so good. Oh my God, you gotta do it. I said, you really think so, Mom? I said, I don't know if I should do it. She goes, are you kidding me? You have to do this. This will change your life. To get up in the morning, walk on the beach, and smell the ocean air, and blah, 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 and you can walk to the pier. I said, you positive? She said, I'm absolutely positive. You gotta do this. I said, okay, and I handed her the keys. And she just stared at me. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know how to process it, And then she started crying, and I started crying. And I remember like it was yesterday. She's passed away now. She's been away for a while. But That's financial freedom. There's no amount of money and there's nothing you buy for yourself that'll ever give you that kind of joy. There's nothing that meaningful as being able to do what you want for the people that you love and care about and yourself. There's certain things that are priceless. Being able to do something for the people you care about without them having to ask is priceless. Being able to dream up creative things to change people's quality of life, to me, is priceless. Showing people you care, not just with money, but with your time and your caring, is priceless. Living a life that's more than yourself, feeling like because I live, somebody else's life is significantly better and will be for a very long time, is priceless. So financial freedom for me is the ability to live and give at the level you want with no limits, and to not have money ever again control you or capture you or create scarcity in you. And anybody can have it start. I don't give a damn if they're upside down, if they just do a few simple steps, and if they do it just consistently. And if the way I show them how to do is how to automate it so you don't have to have any discipline, and you'll be there. And by the way, if you don't do this, where are you going to be in 10 or 20 years? 20 years from now, you're going to surely arrive. Question's where? What's your life going to be like? Who are you going to be with? What are you going to be dealing with? If you make some small little changes right now, your life can be so cool right now, even better, and have to wait. But you also have